That evening, I wrote the first email to Zoe Finch, outlining some suggestions for strengthening the visual narrative. Professional, measured, the product of 25 years in publishing. Her response came at 2 a.m., a flurry of ideas, sketches attached, sentences that ran into each other, with barely a breath between thoughts. No formal greeting, no sign-off, just pure, unfiltered creative energy. I was thinking the same thing about the moonlight needing more presence on pages 9 to 12, but wasn't sure if it would overshadow, the garden reveal. But yes, let's make it glow. And maybe the flowers could have these tiny bioluminescent details that readers only notice on second reading, like a secret message. And, oh, I've attached 3 variations of the girl's expression when she first sees the seeds sprouting. What do you think is most authentic to the emotional core of the story? Something in her unbridled enthusiasm cracked open a door within me that had been sealed shut for years, a door to a version of myself I'd almost forgotten. The Fiona who used to write poetry until dawn, who believed art could change the world, who hadn't yet been systematically diminished by Gregory's subtle cruelties. Over the following weeks, our emails evolved from professional feedback to discussions about the power of children's literature, then to our own histories with books, our lives in Portland, the way certain songs could capture emotions language couldn't touch. I found myself crafting responses during quiet moments at work, my heart lifting whenever her name appeared in my inbox. When the project reached its final stages, it was only natural to suggest meeting in person. "There's a coffee shop near Powell's, Heart Coffee. Do you know it?" I wrote, trying to sound casual. "Heart! Yes! Their stereo blend changed my life last winter. Tomorrow at 2? I'll be wearing paint-splattered overalls because that's literally all I own." I spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing my outfit the next morning, settling on my most presentable linen pants and a blue blouse that a former colleague once said brought out my eyes. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered my usual cortado, and claimed a table by the window, where the light was good but not harsh. At 51, I'd become strategic about such things. When she burst through the door at exactly 2 o'clock, I knew her immediately. The shock of copper hair, the denim overalls with smudges of blue and gold paint, the energy that seemed to vibrate around her like a visible aura. She spotted me and broke into a smile so genuine it made something ache in my chest. "Fiona Campbell!" she exclaimed, dropping into the chair across from me. "Finally! You look exactly like your email voice, do you know that? All elegant and thoughtful, with secret depths." I laughed, caught off guard by her directness. "I'm not sure what an email voice looks like, but thank you, I think." It's definitely a compliment," she assured me, shrugging off a worn leather backpack. "I'm going to grab coffee, and then you have to tell me everything about this mysterious poetry collection you mentioned last week." As she walked to the counter, I had a moment of clarity so sharp it was almost painful. I was attracted to this young woman, not just intellectually stimulated by our conversations, not just professionally impressed with her talent, but drawn to her in a way that made my pulse quicken and my mouth dry. The realization should have horrified me. Instead, it felt like recognition, like finally putting a name to something I'd been feeling for weeks. "You should see it sometime," she said casually. "I'm hosting a small art gathering next Friday. Local illustrators, some writers, very low-key. You'd add some much-needed adult supervision." "Are you calling me old, Zoe Finch?" I asked, surprised by my own playfulness. She leaned forward, those hazel eyes suddenly serious. "I'm calling you exactly what you are. Fascinating." I went to the gathering the following Friday, telling myself it was good networking for the press. Zoe's converted bus was parked on a lot shared with several tiny homes, and an old warehouse converted to artist studios. String lights crisscrossed the communal courtyard, and mismatched furniture had been arranged in conversational groupings. A makeshift bar offered local beers and kombucha on tap. The bus itself was exactly as she'd described, but somehow more, every inch thoughtfully utilized, vibrant with color and texture. Her illustrations covered the walls, interspersed with inspirational quotes, hand-lettered in flowing script. It smelled of sandalwood and fresh paint and possibility. You came! She appeared beside me, pressing a glass of wine into my hand. I wasn't sure you would. I said I would, I replied, accepting the glass, our fingers brushing. People say lots of things. She shrugged, a shadow crossing her expression. I recognized that shadow, the residue of disappointment, of promises broken. It was disconcerting to see it on her young face, a face that otherwise radiated such openness. The evening blurred into introductions. Zoe's friends were a kaleidoscope of creative types, most in their 20s and 30s, all greeting me with curious warmth. I found myself engaged in a passionate discussion about the resurgence of print media with a letterpress artist, comparing notes on favorite bookstores with a literary podcast host, debating the best hikes near Portland with a botanical illustrator. Later, as the gathering dwindled to a core group sprawled across floor cushions inside the bus, someone produced a guitar. The gentle music mingled with the patter of rain on the metal roof. I sat slightly apart, wine glass cradled in my palms, watching Zoe in her element, laughing, singing along softly, her profile illuminated by the warm glow of paper lanterns. She caught me watching and held my gaze across the crowded space. Something unspoken passed between us, a current of recognition that made me look away first. My cheeks warmed despite the cool evening air. When I finally gathered my things to leave, she walked me to my car, sheltering both of us under a large umbrella decorated with her own paintings of mushrooms and ferns. "Thank you for coming," she said as we reached my sensible Subaru. "It meant a lot to me." "I had a wonderful time," I replied honestly. "Your friends are lovely. They liked you," she said. Then more softly, "I like you." The words hung between us in the damp night air. 25 years of professional restraint kept me from saying what I felt, that I was drawn to her in ways that terrified and exhilarated me, that I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt so awake in my own skin. Instead, I said, I should go. Early manuscript meeting tomorrow. She nodded, disappointment flickering across her expressive face. Then, with characteristic boldness, she leaned forward and pressed a kiss to my cheek, her lips warm against my rain-cooled skin. "Good night, Fiona Campbell," she whispered, her breath tickling my ear. I drove home in a daze, my cheek burning where her lips had touched. In my loft, surrounded by my carefully curated life, the vintage typewriter collection, the organized bookshelves, the peaceful plants, I felt suddenly restless, as though I'd outgrown my own skin. That night, for the first time in years, I wrote poetry. Messy, honest verses about desire and fear and the weight of expectations. I wrote until the sky lightened, filling pages with words I never intended anyone to see. The next weeks were torture, professional emails about final artwork, carefully worded and properly punctuated. I found reasons to delay our next in-person meeting, terrified of what I might do or say. Zoe's responses remained cheerful, but I could sense confusion beneath her words, a questioning of what had changed. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, she appeared in the doorway of my office at Evergreen Press. My heart nearly stopped at the sight of her. Copper hair wild from the wind, cheeks flushed, clutching a portfolio to her chest. "I was dropping off final illustrations for the Moonchild book," she explained, perching on the edge of my desk as though she belonged there. And I thought, why not see if the elusive Fiona Campbell is hiding in her office? "Not hiding," I protested weakly. "Just busy." "Too busy for coffee? Or dinner? Or answering text messages?" Her tone was light, but her eyes were serious. I glanced toward my open door, aware of colleagues within earshot. "Zoe, Come to my show this weekend," she interrupted. "I'm displaying some new work at Nucleus Portland. Saturday night, please." How could I refuse when she looked at me with such earnest hope? I nodded, and her smile could have powered the entire city grid. After she left, I sat staring at my computer screen, unable to focus on the manuscript before me. What was I doing? What was I feeling? I was old enough to be her mother, for God's sake. I had reading glasses older than some of her friendships. And yet, I remembered Gregory's voice, the constant undermining. "Don't it be ridiculous, Fiona. No one wants to hear your opinions on modernist poetry." That outfit is a bit young for you, don't you think? Your little editing job is cute, but some of us are doing work that actually matters. 7 years of marriage, death by 1,000 cuts to my self-worth, 3 years of therapy to rebuild what he'd torn down. And now, this brilliant young woman looking at me as though I held all the wisdom of the universe, as though my thoughts and feelings mattered, as though I were desirable exactly as I was. Saturday evening found me standing before my closet, once again paralyzed by indecision. I finally chose a black jumpsuit I'd purchased on a rare, impulsive shopping trip, but had never found the courage to wear. My hair I left loose, silver strands mingling with ash brown, falling past my shoulders in natural waves. The gallery was packed when I arrived, but Zoe spotted me immediately, excusing herself from a conversation to make her way to my side. She wore a vintage dress, emerald green that set her hair aflame, and actual heels instead of her usual paint-splattered sneakers. "You came," she said, her voice soft with wonder. "I said I would," I reminded her, echoing our exchange from weeks before. She smiled, taking my hand to lead me through the crowd. "Let me show you my corner." Her new illustrations were a departure from her children's bookwork, still whimsical, but with an undercurrent of something deeper, more complex. Women of various ages in magical, realist settings, a silver-haired gardener, discovering doorways between worlds in her greenhouse, a middle-aged astronomer whose telescope revealed not stars, but alternate universes, a librarian whose books whispered their stories directly to her. "They're all about women finding magic in midlife," she explained, watching my face as I absorbed the images. "When society thinks they should be fading into the background." I stopped before the final piece in her series, an artist with ash-brown hair streaked with silver, surrounded by floating pages, each one containing a fragment of poetry. The resemblance was unmistakable. "Zoe," I breathed, unable to form a complete thought. "I call it the editor's secret heart," she said quietly. "Too on the nose?" People swirled around us, voices and laughter creating a cocoon of white noise, but all I could see was the care with which she'd rendered my likeness, the tenderness evident in every brushstroke. "Why?" I finally managed. She looked surprised by the question. "Because you inspire me. Because when I'm with you, I feel more myself than with anyone else. Because I haven't been able to think about anything but you for months." The honesty in her voice undid me. There in the crowded gallery, surrounded by Portland's art scene, I felt tears spring to my eyes. "I'm 25 years older than you," I whispered. And? And everything. Your life is just beginning. Mine is also just beginning," she finished firmly. "Different chapters of different books, maybe, but neither story is finished." After the showing, we walked through the light rain to a nearby ramen shop, talking more openly than we ever had. I told her about Gregory, about the years of emotional abuse that had left me doubting my own perceptions, my own worth. She spoke of brief, intense relationships that burned out quickly, of feeling out of step with peers who couldn't understand her dedication to her art. "I've always been drawn to older souls," she admitted, over steaming bowls. "But it's more than that with you. It's specificity. It's you, particularly. Your mind, your quiet strength, the way you see the world." Later, we stood beside my car again, the scene and echo of that night weeks before. This time, when she moved closer, I didn't pull away. Her kiss was gentle at first, questioning, then deeper as I responded. She tasted of the plum wine we'd shared with dinner, her body warm against mine, despite the chilly evening. When we parted, both breathless, she rested her forehead against mine. "Come home with me." The invitation hung between us, fraught with possibility. Every rational thought argued against it. The age difference, professional complications, the potential for heartbreak. But something older and wiser than reason guided me as I nodded. That night in her tiny house, rain drumming on the metal roof, we discovered each other slowly, reverently. I hadn't been touched with such tenderness in years, perhaps ever. My body, with its softness and lines earned through 5 decades of living, became something precious under her artist's hands. And her youth, her vibrant energy, bloomed under my patient exploration. "You're shaking!" she whispered at one point, her palm against my cheek. I'm terrified, I admitted. Of this. Of how much I want this, want you. Her smile in the dim light, illuminated only by the string lights along her tiny windows, was like witnessing a private sunrise. Then we're equally terrified, and equally certain. Morning found us tangled together in her Murphy bed, sunlight streaming through the skylight she'd installed herself. I watched her sleep, this improbable love of mine, her copper lashes casting shadows on freckled cheeks. What were we doing? What impossible thing were we beginning? As though sensing my thoughts, she opened her eyes, instantly alert in the way of the very young. You're thinking too loudly, she murmured, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. One of us should be thinking, I replied, but without heat. She propped herself up on one elbow, suddenly serious. Fiona, I know what people will say. I know the assumptions they'll make. That I have daddy issues, that you're having a midlife crisis, that it can't possibly be real between us. I nodded, throat tight with emotions I couldn't name. But here's what I know, she continued, taking my hand and placing it over her heart. I know that I've dated people my own age who made me feel lonely in a crowded room. And I know that when I'm with you, I feel completely seen. That has nothing to do with age and everything to do with who we are together. The weeks that followed were a delicate balance. Professional boundaries maintained at work, evenings and weekends spent discovering the contours of this unexpected relationship. We moved between my spacious loft and her colorful tiny house, creating a shared life in increments. There were challenges, of course, moments when cultural references fell flat, when her youthful optimism collided with my hard-earned pragmatism. The first time we encountered acquaintances while out together, I felt myself stiffen at their curious glances, their quick mental calculations of the years between us. Zoe, sensing my discomfort, simply took my hand more firmly in hers. Let them wonder, she whispered. My friends were cautiously supportive, if confused. Just be careful, my oldest friend Rachel warned, over wine in my loft, after meeting Zoe at a dinner party. She seems wonderful, but you're at such different stages of life. I know, I acknowledged. But when has love ever been sensible? The word hung between us. Love. It was the first time I'd said it aloud, though I'd felt it growing for months, taking root in the fertile soil of shared creativity, mutual respect, and undeniable chemistry. The first serious test came 3 months into our relationship when Zoe was offered an artist residency in Japan. 6 months at a prestigious studio in Kyoto, working with traditional illustration techniques. It's an incredible opportunity, I said, when she showed me the acceptance letter, ignoring the heavy stone that had settled in my stomach. You have to take it. She studied my face, her own unusually solemn. Would you wait for me? The question carried echoes of all my insecurities, that I was too old for her, that she would inevitably outgrow me, that our connection was somehow temporary. The question, I said carefully, is whether you'll find your way back. You'll be meeting new people, having experiences that will change you. You might realize that what you want is someone with whom you can share the next 50 years, not someone who's already lived 50. Hurt flashed across her face. Is that what you think of me? That I'm so shallow? That what I feel for you is so insubstantial? No, I sighed, reaching for her hand. It's what I fear about myself, that I'm not enough, that I can't be what you deserve. Stop, she said fiercely. Stop letting Gregory's voice live in your head. Stop assuming you know what I need better than I do. That night, she stayed at her tiny house alone, our first night apart in weeks. I lay awake in my too-empty bed, surrounded by the antique herbal lockets I collected, thinking about time and worth, and the stories we tell ourselves about both. The next morning, she appeared at my door, eyes red-rimmed but resolute. I made you something, she said, holding out a small wooden box. Inside, I found a handcrafted book, its pages filled with illustrations, moments from our months together rendered in her distinctive style. Me laughing over coffee, us walking through Forest Park, my hands editing a manuscript. The two of us curled on my couch, reading separate books, but somehow together. On the final page, she'd written in her flowing script, Time is not linear. Love is not finite. Choose possibility over fear. I looked up to find her watching me intently. I'm going to Japan, she said quietly, because it's important for my work, and because you would never forgive yourself if I stayed for you. But I'm coming back, Fiona Campbell. To this city, to this strange, beautiful life we're building. To you. She kept her promise. 6 months that felt like both an eternity and a heartbeat, bridged by video calls and emails and care packages exchanged across the Pacific. I sent her vintage postcards of Portland, packets of her favorite local coffee, first edition poetry books, discovered in Powell's dusty shelves. She sent illustrated letters, origami creatures, a hand-carved Netsuki figurine of a woman reading that she'd commissioned from a local artist. When she returned, tanned and vibrant with new experiences, I met her at the airport with trembling hands and a racing heart. What if the distance had changed things? What if seeing me now, after months among people her own age, the reality of our difference was too stark? She emerged from the gate, spotted me, and her entire face transformed with joy. She dropped her bags and ran to me, throwing her arms around my neck with such force that I staggered backward. I missed you, she breathed against my skin. Every day, every hour. That night, as we lay tangled in my sheets, relearning each other's bodies, she propped herself up to look at me seriously. Move in with me, she said. I blinked, surprised. Into the tiny house? She laughed. No, although that would be an adventure in minimalism for you. I meant, let's find a place together, something that's ours from the beginning. Not your space or my space, but our space. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. At 51, I'd grown accustomed to my independence, my particular ways of arranging my life. And yet, the idea of creating something new with her, a physical manifestation of this improbable love, pulled at me with irresistible force. 3 months later, we signed a lease on a converted firehouse in North Portland. A quirky space with high ceilings, massive windows, and enough room for both her studio and my library of books. We painted the walls together, argued amiably about furniture placement, blended our separate collections into something that told a new story. On moving day, as friends helped carry boxes and furniture, I caught Rachel watching me with a thoughtful expression. What? I asked, self-conscious under her scrutiny. You look happy, she said simply. Younger, somehow, but also more yourself than I've seen you in years. That night, after everyone had gone, and we were alone in our new home, boxes half unpacked, mattress on the floor because the bed frame was still in pieces, Zoe pulled me to the large windows overlooking the neighborhood. Look, she said, pointing to where the setting sun painted the sky in impossible colors. It's the perfect metaphor, the day ending with the most spectacular display of beauty and color. I understood what she was saying. This vibrant young woman who had chosen to love me, not despite my age, but including it, embracing the whole complex tapestry of who I was. The beginning of night, I murmured. Not the end of anything. She turned to me, her face serious in the fading light. I know people look at us and see only the gap in years. They don't see how you've taught me to slow down, to find depth in stillness. They don't see how you've helped me become more disciplined in my art, more confident in my voice. And they don't see how you've reminded me to play, to take risks, I added, brushing copper strands from her face. How you've helped me reclaim parts of myself I thought were gone forever. We stood there as darkness fell, holding each other in the home we would build together, day by day. I don't know what the future holds for us, how many years we'll have, what challenges await. I only know that at 51, I've discovered a capacity for love and courage I never imagined possible. Sometimes, late at night, when Zoe sleeps beside me, her breath warm against my neck, I still marvel at the improbability of us. The editor and the illustrator, silver hairs intertwined with copper on shared pillows. I think of all the choices that brought us to each other. Her decision to illustrate that particular manuscript, my email sent at just the right moment, both of us brave enough to recognize what was growing between us despite every conventional reason to deny it. The rain has stopped now, the late afternoon sun breaking through Portland's perpetual clouds. Soon, Zoe will return from her studio in the other room, paint on her fingers and ideas spilling from her lips. We'll make dinner together, open a bottle of wine, plan our weekend, discuss the books we're reading. Ordinary moments made extraordinary by the simple fact of our choosing each other, again and again, day after day. This is what I've learned, what I wish I could tell my younger self. Love doesn't always come when or how you expect it. Sometimes it arrives decades into your journey, wearing a form you never anticipated, challenging everything you thought you knew about yourself and your life's trajectory. And when it does, if you're very lucky and very brave, you open your arms, your heart, your life, and say simply, completely, yes. I never imagined I'd be sitting here, at 51, penning what feels like the most honest confession of my life. The rain taps against my loft windows, that quintessential Portland percussion, while steam rises from my third cup of pour-over. Outside, the Pearl District is coming alive with Saturday morning seekers, but I'm still here, suspended in this moment, trying to make sense of what my life has become. How do you explain to someone that you've discovered love in the most unexpected place, at the most unexpected time, with the most unexpected person? That after half a century of following prescribed paths, you suddenly find yourself wandering gloriously off map? Who's the artist? I asked Darren, our acquisitions editor. Some new talent, he replied, not looking up from his screen. Zoe something. She's local.